Imagine this. You wake up one morning, and the person who was lying next to you just hours ago has vanished without a trace. No note, no explanation, no goodbye, just an empty space where they once were. Now, fast forward 5 years, and you're a successful CEO living a life that seems perfect on the surface. But then, out of nowhere, you come face to face with 2 children who look exactly like you. Your world shatters in an instant. Who are these kids? Where did they come from? And most importantly, where is she, the woman who disappeared without a word all those years ago? This is not just a story about love, loss, and secrets. It's a story about how the past can come crashing back into your life when you least expect it. If you've ever wondered how one night can change everything, or how the choices we make can haunt us for years, then you're in the right place. Because today, we're diving deep into a tale that will leave you questioning everything you think you know about love, family, and the power of secret. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like your life was on track, only to have something or someone completely derail it? That's exactly what happened to our protagonist, a man who thought he had it all, wealth, power, and a life that many could only dream of. But beneath the surface, there was always a void, a lingering question that he could never quite shake. And then, in one shocking moment, that question was answered in a way he never could have imagined. This story isn't just about him, though. It's about her, the woman who vanished after one unforgettable night. Who was she? Why did she leave? And what secrets was she hiding? These are the questions that will keep you hooked. And by the end of this video, you'll have the answers you've been searching for. But be warned, once you start watching, you won't be able to stop. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why should I care about this story? What makes it different from all the other dramas out there? Well, let me tell you, this isn't just another tale of love and loss. This is a story that will make you question everything you thought you knew about relationships, about trust, and about the lengths people will go to protect the ones they love. It's a story that will keep you on the edge of your seat, wondering what's going to happen next. And it's a story that will stay with you long after the video ends. So, if you're ready to dive into a world of mystery, intrigue, and heart-stopping twists, then keep watching, because this is one story you won't want to miss. Let's set the scene. It's a cold, rainy night in New York City. The kind of night where the city feels alive, pulsing with energy and possibility. Our protagonist, let's call him Daniel, is a young, ambitious man with dreams of making it big. He's at a high-profile party, rubbing elbows with the city's elite when he sees her. She's beautiful, mysterious, and unlike anyone he's ever met before. They share a connection that's instant and electric, and before the night is over, they find themselves alone together, lost in each other's arms. But when Daniel wakes up the next morning, she's gone. No note, no explanation, no trace of her existence. It's as if she was never there at all. Fast forward 5 years and Daniel is now the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company. He's successful, powerful, and seemingly untouchable. But beneath the surface, he's haunted by the memory of that night. He's tried to move on, tried to forget, but the mystery of her disappearance has always lingered in the back of his mind. And then, one day, everything changes. He's at a charity event, shaking hands and making small talk, when he sees them, 2 children, a boy and a girl who look exactly like him. His heart stops. His mind races. Who are these kids? And how are they connected to the woman who vanished all those years ago? This is where the story really begins. Because as Daniel digs deeper, he uncovers secrets that will change his life forever. Secrets about the woman he thought he knew, secrets about his own past, and secrets that will force him to confront the truth about who he really is. But here's the thing, the more he learns, the more questions he has. And the more questions he has, the more dangerous things become. Because there are people out there who will do anything to keep the truth hidden. People who will stop at nothing to protect their own secrets. And as Daniel gets closer to the truth, he realizes that he's not just fighting for answers. He's fighting for his life. So, what happens next? Who is the woman who vanished after one night? And how are these two children connected to Daniel? Well, that's what we're here to find out. But before we go any further, let me ask you this. Have you ever had a moment in your life where everything changed in an instant? A moment where you realized that nothing would ever be the same again? That's exactly where Daniel is right now. There's always a glimmer of hope. And sometimes, that hope can lead to something extraordinary. So, are you ready to dive into this incredible journey? Are you ready to witness a love story that will touch your heart and a miracle that will leave you speechless? If the answer is yes, then don't go anywhere. The best is yet to come. But before we get to the heart of the story, let me ask you one more thing. What would you do if you were given a second chance at love? Would you take it even if it meant risking everything? Keep that question in mind as we move forward, because by the end of this video, you might just find your answer. And now, here's the cliffhanger. Just when Ethan and Sophia think they've found their happily ever after, a secret from the past threatens to tear them apart. A secret so shocking it could change everything. What is it? And can their love survive the truth? You'll have to keep watching to find out. But one thing's for sure, this is a story you won't want to miss. So, grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable, and let's dive into the unforgettable tale of love, sacrifice, and the miracle that brought two broken souls together. Stay tuned, you're in for a wild ride. To truly understand the depth of Ethan and Sophia's story, we need to go back to where it all began, before the penthouse, before the miracle, before their lives became intertwined in ways neither of them could have predicted. Ethan's journey to becoming a CEO was anything but easy. Born into a middle-class family, he clawed his way to the top through sheer determination and an unrelenting work ethic. But success came at a cost. His marriage, once a source of comfort, fell apart under the weight of his ambition and the crushing disappointment of infertility. His ex-wife, unable to bear the emotional toll, left him with nothing but a quiet house and a heart full of regrets. For years, Ethan buried himself in work, building an empire while his personal life crumbled. He became the man everyone admired, but no one truly knew, a man who had everything except the one thing he longed for, a child to call his own. Sophia's story, on the other hand, was one of resilience in the face of adversity. Growing up in a small town, she learned early on that life doesn't always go as planned. A single mother by the age of 23, she worked tirelessly to provide for her daughter, Emma, while chasing her own dreams of becoming a nurse. But life had other plans. When Emma was diagnosed with a rare illness, Sophia's world turned upside down. Medical bills piled up, and she found herself making impossible choices just to keep her daughter alive. It was during this time that she stumbled upon an ad that would change her life forever, a surrogacy opportunity that promised financial stability but demanded an emotional sacrifice she wasn't sure she could make. Desperate and out of options, Sophia took the leap, not knowing that this decision would lead her to Ethan and a love she never saw coming. Their first meeting was anything but romantic. It was a cold, clinical arrangement brokered by lawyers and contracts. Ethan was guarded, his walls firmly in place, while Sophia was nervous, unsure of what she was getting herself into. But as the months went by and Sophia carried Ethan's child, something began to shift. Late-night conversations turned into shared confessions, and the walls they had both built started to crumble. Ethan found himself opening up in ways he hadn't in years, while Sophia discovered a strength she didn't know she had. Yet, even as their connection deepened, there were secrets lurking beneath the surface, secrets that threatened to unravel everything they were building. One of those secrets was Ethan's past. Though he had shared bits and pieces of his life with Sophia, there was one chapter he kept locked away, a chapter involving his ex-wife and a betrayal that had left him scarred. Sophia, too, had her own hidden truths. While she had been honest about her daughter's illness, she hadn't told Ethan about the man who had walked out on them when Emma was just a baby. That man, Sophia's ex, had recently resurfaced, demanding a role in Emma's life and stirring up emotions Sophia had long since buried. As if that wasn't enough, there was the growing tension between Ethan and Sophia's best friend, Claire, who had always been protective of Sophia and suspicious of Ethan's intentions. Claire's warnings planted seeds of doubt in Sophia's mind, making her question whether she was making the right choice by letting Ethan into her life. Meanwhile, the pregnancy brought its own set of challenges. Sophia's health began to decline, and the doctors warned of potential complications. Ethan, who had already lost so much, found himself grappling with a fear he hadn't felt in years, the fear of losing someone he cared about. For Sophia, the physical toll was matched only by the emotional weight of carrying a child she would eventually have to give up. The delivery was anything but smooth. Complications arose, and Sophia's health took a dangerous turn. Ethan, who had always been a man of action, felt utterly powerless as he watched the woman he loved fight for her life and the life of their child. It was in those agonizing hours that he realized just how much Sophia meant to him. She wasn't just the mother of his child, she was the person who had brought light back into his life, the one who had made him believe in love again. As he held her hand and whispered words of encouragement, he vowed to do whatever it took to make things right if only they could make it through the night. But just when it seemed like things couldn't get any more complicated, an unexpected twist changed everything. As Sophia was being wheeled into the operating room for an emergency C-section, Ethan received a call from his ex-wife. Their son, who had been perfectly healthy just days before, had suddenly fallen ill and was now in the hospital. The doctors weren't sure what was wrong, but they suspected it was something serious. Ethan's heart sank as he realized he was being forced to choose between two children he loved, one he had just met, and one who was about to be born. The weight of the decision was crushing, and for the first time in his life, Ethan felt truly lost. He wanted to be there for Sophia and their baby, but how could he abandon his son in his time of need? Sophia, though weak and in pain, could see the turmoil in Ethan's eyes. When he told her about his son, she didn't hesitate. "Go," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "He needs you." Her selflessness in that moment left Ethan speechless. Here was a woman who had every reason to be angry, to feel betrayed, yet she was putting his needs above her own. It was a moment that would stay with him forever, a reminder of the kind of love he had always dreamed of but never thought he deserved. With a heavy heart, Ethan left Sophia's side, promising to return as soon as he could. But as he drove to the hospital where his son was, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was leaving behind a part of himself. Back at the hospital, Sophia's situation grew more dire. The doctors worked tirelessly to save her and the baby, but the odds were not in their favor. Claire, who had rushed to Sophia's side, held her friend's hand and prayed for a miracle. It was in those tense, uncertain hours that Sophia's strength truly shone. Despite the pain and the fear, she refused to give up. She thought of Emma, of Ethan, and of the baby she had carried for 9 months. She thought of all the struggles she had overcome and the love she had found along the way. And in that moment, she made a silent promise to herself, no matter what happened, she would fight for her children, for Ethan, and for the life they had built together. As the night wore on, the stakes grew higher and the tension became almost unbearable. Ethan, torn between 2 hospitals and 2 children, felt the weight of his choices bearing down on him. Sophia, fighting for her life, clung to the hope that she would get to hold her baby in her arms. And somewhere in the midst of all the chaos, a miracle was waiting to happen, a miracle that would change their lives forever. But what that miracle would be and whether it would come in time remained to be seen. The story was far from over and the twists and turns were only just beginning. So, stay with me because the next chapter of this unforgettable journey is about to unfold, and trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. The night stretched on, each moment feeling like an eternity as Ethan raced against time, his heart torn between 2 hospitals and 2 children who needed him. When he arrived at his son's bedside, the sight of the small boy hooked up to machines broke him. His son, whom he had only just learned existed, looked so fragile, so innocent. Ethan sat by his side, holding his tiny hand and whispering promises he wasn't sure he could keep. The doctors explained that the boy had a rare condition that required immediate surgery, but the risks were high. Ethan felt the weight of every decision he had ever made crashing down on him. He had spent years building walls to protect himself from pain, but now, faced with the possibility of losing a child he had just found, those walls crumbled. He prayed not just for his son, but for Sophia and their baby too. In that moment, he realized that love wasn't about control or perfection. It was about showing up, even when it hurt. Back at the other hospital, Sophia's condition had stabilized, but the baby was still in danger. The doctors worked tirelessly, their faces tense with concentration as they fought to save the tiny life that had brought Ethan and Sophia together. Claire stayed by Sophia's side, her usual sharpness softened by the gravity of the situation. She held Sophia's hand and told her stories about Emma, about how strong and brave she was, just like her mother. Sophia clung to those words, drawing strength from the thought of her daughter. She thought about Ethan too, and the love they had found in the most unexpected of places. Despite the pain and the fear, she refused to give up. She had come too far, fought too hard to let it all end now. And then, just as the first light of dawn began to break through the hospital windows, a cry echoed through the room, a tiny, miraculous sound that brought tears to everyone's eyes. The baby, a beautiful, healthy boy, had arrived. But the miracle didn't stop there. As Sophia held her newborn son for the first time, a wave of relief and joy washed over her. She named him Noah, a name that meant rest and comfort, because he had brought both to her life in ways she could never have imagined. Meanwhile, at the other hospital, Ethan's son's surgery was a success. The doctors were cautiously optimistic, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Ethan allowed himself to hope. He called Sophia, his voice trembling with emotion as he told her about their son's recovery. Sophia, tears streaming down her face, shared the news of Noah's birth. In that moment, it felt as though the universe had aligned, bringing them both the miracles they had been praying for. But just when it seemed like their story had reached its happy ending, an unexpected twist changed everything. A few days later, as Ethan and Sophia sat together in the hospital room, surrounded by the soft sounds of Noah's breathing, Ethan received a call from his ex-wife. She had made a decision, one that would change their lives forever. She told Ethan that she wanted him to be a part of their son's life, not just as a distant figure, but as a father. She had seen the way he had fought for their son, the way he had shown up when it mattered most, and she realized that he deserved a chance to be the dad he had always wanted to be. Ethan was speechless, overwhelmed by the magnitude of her words. He looked at Sophia, who smiled through her tears and nodded. "This is your second chance," she said softly. "Don't let it go." The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions as Ethan and Sophia navigated their new reality. Ethan's son, whom they named Liam, came home from the hospital, and for the first time, Ethan felt the joy of being a father in a way he had never experienced before. Sophia, though still recovering, was there every step of the way, her love and support unwavering. Together, they created a life that was messy and imperfect, but filled with more love than they had ever thought possible. Emma, who had been wary of Ethan at first, slowly warmed up to him, especially when she saw how much he cared for her baby brother. Claire, too, came around, her skepticism giving way to admiration as she watched Ethan and Sophia build a life together. But the story didn't end there. As the months passed, Ethan and Sophia found themselves facing new challenges and new joys. They learned that love wasn't about avoiding pain or hiding from the past. It was about facing it together with honesty and courage. They celebrated Liam's first steps and Noah's first words, and they held each other through the sleepless nights and the tough days. They built a family not just with their children, but with each other. And in doing so, they discovered that the real miracle wasn't just the babies they had brought into the world. It was the love they had found in each other, a love that had the power to heal even the deepest wounds. As the story comes to a close, I want to leave you with this thought: life is unpredictable, messy, and often unfair. But it's also beautiful, especially when we find the courage to open our hearts to the unexpected. Ethan and Sophia's story is a testament to that. It's a reminder that even in our darkest moments, there's always a glimmer of hope, and sometimes that hope can lead to something extraordinary. So, if you're facing a challenge right now, if you're feeling lost or broken, remember this story. Remember that miracles can happen, but they often come in ways we don't expect. And most importantly, remember that love, true, unconditional love, has the power to change everything. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey. Until next time, keep believing in the impossible, because you never know when your miracle might be just around the corner.